All right, next up, we have a couple of groups that will talk about how they are strengthening traditional food systems within their communities. First up, we will have Steve Ellis and Lori Taguna from Make Way, or formerly Tides Canada. They'll be talking about the full-time hunter and steward program they are piloting in Nunavut. And then we'll be hearing from Chris Pereira as well too, who will be talking about their community hunts involving local youth and how they were able to put their mobile meat processing unit to good use. So we'll get to that and Chris coming up shortly. But first, we'll be hearing from Lori Taguna from Make Way. She's a senior associate from Iqaluit in Nunavut. Her role focuses on building meaningful relationships and partnering with Inuit communities, leaders, and organizations to enable community-driven solutions. And Lori works with Steve Ellis, and we'll get to Steve first. He's the program lead for the Northern Canada for Make Way, a national philanthropic foundation devoted to fostering community solutions to environmental sustainability, economic prosperity, and community well-being challenges. He is focused on working with Northerners to amplify next generation Northern leadership, foster sustainable livelihoods, achieve wise land and water stewardship, and catalyze cultural resurgence. So from the breakout groups into our traditional from the land, I guess in our food systems, we'll get to Steve. Steve, the Anti-Poverty Roundtable floor is virtually yours.
Thanks, Dennis. We have 10 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for the intros. So I'll just sort of set things up. Then Lori will help us. Start things off, and then I'll sort of hopefully bring things home a little bit. Basically, Make Way is working with a number of communities across Nunavut and the Northwest Territories to explore the values of a very old idea, which is full-time professional hunting and harvesting as one of the most honored and important roles and responsibilities and professions in Northern communities. Something that nowadays, because hunting is evolving and harvesting is evolving and it's getting more and more expensive and people need wages and so on, that it's becoming increasingly something that's done by weekend warriors or people are doing on the margins of their regular lives. And the question that Lori and I and others at Make Way and the communities that we're working with are asking ourselves is that, isn't the value that these hunters and harvesters bring to their communities and to the North in general worth more than just side of the table gigs? Aren't these professions that are bring enough value to the table that they should be treated as careers, professions, and so on that have contemporary value moving into the future? So we're going through an exercise now, working with a number of communities and hunters, looking at what that suite of values and benefits are of these types of programs and trying to communicate those values in a way that's obvious to all audiences. One thing we're always faced with when we're talking to people in communities is that they're like, yeah, of course hunters are more important. Of course they're super important. Why do we have to explain this to people? It's intuitive. We know these things. But I'm very mindful of the CEO of Nunavut Tungavik a few months ago saying that they were in high-level negotiations with the federal government on Nutrition North and how millions of dollars will be allocated to address food security issues for Inuit in Nunavut. And she brought up the view that we don't have the luxury of bringing in Ottawa bureaucrats to our communities and educating them to see the world as we see it. We need to communicate to them in their language and give them evidence that makes sense to them. So we need to quantify and show the details in sort of a Western bureaucratic sense so they understand the value of hunters and harvesters in our communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lori, who will sort of outline some of the value propositions that we're exploring with hunters, and I'll talk about some of the more boring stuff at the back end on what we're actually doing about it. All right, over to you, Lori.
Hunting's not a boring subject, Steve. I feel like for Inuit, hunting is one of the most important things. It's essential, it's survival, and it brings benefits beyond food security. Traditionally, Inuit communities were centered around the hunter. The hunter was the leader. The hunter made decisions about migration patterns. Where do we go now? What is it time to focus on now? And through colonization, this role has changed a lot, and we have many men who are now displaced within our communities. And you see that through, like, it comes up in different places. So like for me, hunting is essential. And when we talk about full-time hunter programs, yes, they bring food security benefits to us. They push food sovereignty. But also we're talking about environmental and ecological insights and knowledge that's accumulated through constant interaction with the land, which leads to increased conservation efforts or even better understanding of how to use these products for economic benefit, for commercialization. And also like cultural continuity. What we've been saying for the last 100 years is that our culture is important to us. And in 100 years, we're still going to say our culture is important to us. If you asked us, what are our priorities for education? Culture. Like, culture is always going to be important. And through hunting, through harvesting, it's that continuity of culture. It's the passing of culture. And also, like, socially or in terms of mental health or community health, through relationship with the land, you find your sense of being, you find your place in the world, you solidify your role in the community, to be of service to the community, to be of service to your family. So hunting is not just hunting, like it goes beyond that. Steve? I think you're on mute.
Thanks, Larry. In order to try to communicate in a way that's understandable to all audiences, what Laurie was just talking about with the various benefits of hunting professions from a food security perspective, from a disease prevention perspective, from a mental health and wellness perspective, from a role modeling perspective, from an ecological knowledge perspective, from a straight up economic value. There's all sorts of different layers of benefits that these hunters bring to their communities. And we want to try to demonstrate that in a way that's understandable to all audiences and cultures. So we're working with some Inuit organizations, as well as potentially some Dene organizations in the Northwest Territories, to do a comprehensive evaluation of their hunter or steward programs, where they have full-time professional harvesters or land users out there, essentially doing, as as someone from DEDA told me, these people are just doing what their aunties tell them to do. They're going out and harvesting wood. They're getting water and all that sort of stuff. It's very prescriptive on what they're supposed to do. They're just supposed to fulfill their roles as they always have as harvesters. So we're undertaking an evaluation that will endeavor to demonstrate the return on investment for dollars invested. And it's based on a pilot project that we did in Clyde River, Nunavut, a couple of years ago, where we supported the payment of one hunter for 18 months, a salary of $90,000, to go out and do as he does and be a hunter, and documented the food security benefits, how the food was distributed, the sort of edible meat distributed into the community. And we really showed that it not only was the immediate and extended family touched in that community, but communities outside of Clyde River, community, even Ottawa, people were receiving the benefits of the food. The full-time equivalent in meat that one harvester brought home was over $60,000 in a year. And that's not even counting the things like disease prevention, mental health and wellness benefits, youth mentorship, and all those other things. So once we start to layer on those various levels of benefit, we are quite certain that we'll see that $90,000 that was invested into that person per annum is probably delivering multiples more in benefit back to their communities. Just one quick example before we close is that one thing we're looking at is an aspect of disease prevention. Nunavut has rickets, a sort of a weird medieval disease that you never hear of anymore, and it doesn't really exist in most of the world, but does still exist in Nunavut. largely because of, well, we're all very aware of sort of the limited health infrastructure and so on, and the increased susceptibility of people to some diseases in the north. Basically, you can prevent rickets if you have one meal of country food a week. So you can quantify quite easily what the cost to the government of Nunavut and the federal government is to control rickets in and manage rickets in that in that territory. If you were to able to subsidize the work of various harvesters in communities to ensure that people have access to country foods, you could effectively eliminate rickets quite easily and probably save millions of dollars. So there's that social return on investment that we're really trying to get at. So stay tuned. We're working through this with a number of Indigenous organization partners in the next couple of years, and we'll be sharing results as they arise. It's something we're pretty excited to be involved in, and if we can help reprofile investments from public governments, philanthropic institutions like ourselves, and other agencies to better support harvesters, their access to land, and the important roles they play in their community, then we will hopefully have made a bit of a contribution. So thanks a lot, Denise.
I always enjoy listening and visiting with you, even if it's virtually, but nice to see you. Also, Lori, I really like your points about it's beyond food security, beyond food sovereignty, cultural continuity, so important. And to be able to, I guess, for people to, when they're harvesting traditionally, to be able to find their sense of being as well too. So those things I think are so important when it comes to a lot of this. It's just not just food security. There's other benefits that go to our health, mental health, our relationships with community, our relationships with land as well too. Very, very important. Just brought to mind my late uncle, Rene Lamotte. I used to go to him for a lot of information. And as a Dene person growing up, I was confused because there's so many different terminology out there. You know, there's Indian, Aboriginal, First Nation. So it's very easy to be confused. He says that the best word is a Dene word, is Dene. But if you have to use an English word, he liked to use the word indigenous. And he said his definition of indigenous was that you belong to a certain group of people that live in a geographic location. And to become indigenous, you have to be part of that group for 10 generations or more. After 10 generations or more of that group of people living in that geographic location, your body starts to change to adapt to its immediate surroundings. So just like Earl was saying earlier, that's why traditional foods are so important for indigenous folks. Inuit, Dene, Métis here in the north, because it's our source of power and our source of medicine as well too. Great, great stuff. So thank you again, Steve. Thank you again, Lori. So good. All right, up next, we have Chris. Oh, sorry. Did somebody want to respond? Lori?
Yeah, I just want to quickly add to that, like what you're saying is where I've even heard that our people have lived on these lands so long that we've evolved at the same time as the animals and the environment. And we've grown together. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing that as well too. That aspect of cultural continuity, I think, is so important to point out here. And not only this discussion, but a lot of other discussions as well too. So thank you, Lori, and to Steve. We'll move on to our next presenter. We got Chris Pereira, who will tell us about the community hunts involving local youth and how they're able to put their mobile meat processing unit to good use. Chris is an innovator in food security, small business, and community well-being. Chris holds a degree in biotechnology and has education and experience in GIS technology, microbiology, food technology. He's currently the program manager at the Fort Good Hope Renewable Resources Board. And Chris is with us. Although we are in the north, the reality of doing business and technology and connectivity in the north sometimes could not be as good as other places in the country. So our connection might not be very good with Chris, but Chris is there. So bear with us. There might not be any video, but Chris is there. And please listen, some important stuff as well too. So from then we'll go to Chris. The Anti-Poverty Roundtable floor is virtually yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the food security program in our community, Food Good Hope. And as he mentioned, like we have a terrible internet connection and no video. So anyway, I'm Chris Pereira. I'm Program Manager, Food Good Hope Renewable Resource Council. And Daniel Jackson is the elected president of the RRC, but he got held up with a different meeting, so he won't be joining us today. So the council appointed me to initiate and manage new programs for the RRC in November 2019. Renewable Resources Council, we cover the conservation and promotion of hunters and trappers, and is also responsible for conserving all the community's renewable resources. Now let me brief you about our program. In the year 2012, if I'm not wrong, the community was provided with a full operational food processing trailer by GNWT-ITI. The trailer was used only for a couple of training sessions and was parked on the school compound ever since. Once I got here, I conveyed my interest to the council in acquiring it under the RRC. And the council was pretty much happy and fully supported my idea. And we started the process of acquiring it in March 2020. And again, due to COVID, this got delayed till June 2020. During the same period, Fort Good Hope Airport complained about muskox running around on the airport runway and creating a nuisance for the pilots to land the plane. GNWT-ENR requested to shoot 5 muskox to solve this issue, and we thought we could turn this into an opportunity to start a food unit. The muskox meat by itself is not a delicacy here in the community, and upon discussion with a few of the community members, we processed the meat with spices to patties, sausages, and steaks. And we gave it out to the community, and we were like really surprised to see a high acceptance from the community to the processed meat. And currently we are requesting to acquire some commercial muskox stacks for the RRC so that we can go out and shoot some more muskox and give it out to the community, and maybe in the future look into selling it for a like really affordable price to the other communities of Satu. The CBC covered this, and we were getting a lot of interest and inquiries from multiple organizations around the NWT. So a lot of people came to know about it, and you can see from the pictures, like, I mean, that's a unit we have. Currently, we are also running a cut and wrap service from the unit. So the community members can bring in their country meat and get it cut and wrapped, or like, I mean, even vacuum packed for a really affordable price. Under the president and the council's leadership, especially Wilfred Jackson is an experienced hunter trapper. He's around 80 years old now. We organized 2 community hunts. The second one was organized to teach the youth in hunting, trapping, fishing, and even processing of the meat. We hired 4 experienced hunters to train them. And we are currently planning to organize such hunts every year. The meat and fish from these hunts were brought back to the community. It was processed in our unit and later distributed in the community. Priority was given to people with no access country food, like elders and single mothers. We also managed to send some meat to long-term care in Norman Wells and to the students of Fort Goodhope studying in Fort Smith. We understood that the main ingredient for the success of such an initiative is a group of well-trained staff. With fundings from GNWT ITI and GNWT ECE, we trained 6 community members in basic food handling certification and in butchering. 1 person was also trained in quality control. As the program develops, all 6 will have full-time employment. We also acquired a commercial fishing license to sell fish to the local community. So far, 2 community members went out to Rory Lake and bought back fish sufficient for the community. This fish was cut, cleaned, and wrapped in the food unit. Each fish was sold for $5 to the community, which was like really affordable. And a lot of people are asking for more fish. So we are trying to develop this program as well. Despite COVID-19, the FGH RRC was able to initiate multiple food security programs in the community. And this year, we are planning to refine our current programs as well as start new programs to ensure food security in the community. I'm also really excited to see so many, some of NWT's anti-poverty and food security champions here, and we would love to collaborate with you to provide food safety, security in NWT. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact our office, and I will be more than happy to discuss and move forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Appreciate your presentation and all the work that you're doing over there, Chris. It sounds really interesting. You know, you're in the north when you have to like deal with muskox at the airport, but instead of shooing them away, we kind of use that as an opportunity for some capacity building within the community, relying on the expertise of the hunters and harvesters. That's really cool, actually. So thanks for sharing about your work there, Chris. Again, if anybody's interested, we can probably set up some contact information so you can hear directly from him. Also, there's the chat option here within our Zoom setup on the platform. So if there's anything, any food for thought, any comments, I'm sure like a lot of these people that are working within these initiatives probably be pretty appreciative for any comments and feedback that they get as well too. So again, from Radley Cove, Fort Good Hope, Chris Mussey Cho. Also from Make Way, Lori and Steve, thank you very much for the work that you're doing there and for your insight as well too.